good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and remember that Context is Everything Media Network founder and CEO John Michael Monroy is reading this textbook cover to cover. In the Ambient Classroom series on the Context is Everything Media Network of shows. My name's John Michael, and I'm doing a review today of Chapter 13, which brings us to page 327 of 1007. So we're making our way downtown as we ride through this book. Today is a review day of the entire chapter. So we're talking about Japan. We're talking about Asia. Japan, the last two sections, and China and Korea and the Mongols otherwise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from section 1 of chapter 13. I'm going to read my notes from section 1 of chapter 13, and from there, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read the notes. Thank you for joining me. Context is Everything Media Network. Chapter 13, Section 1. The Tang and Song Dynasties in China. Tang and Song Dynasties in China. China experienced a period of division and turmoil after the collapse of the Han Dynasty in 220 AD. However, the country gradually improved its farming production and technology, and Buddhism spread while arts and learning continued. The Sui dynasty briefly reunited China, but the Tang dynasty, which began in 618, is considered to have restored China to its earlier glory that ended in 220 when the Han dynasty collapsed. Tang Taizong, the first Tang emperor, was a brilliant general, government reformer, historian, and master calligrapher. Later Tang rulers expanded the empire by conquering territories deep into Central Asia and forcing neighboring lands to become tributary states. The Tang emperor also instituted a system of land reform which strengthened the central government and increased government revenue. Lots of mentions of strengthening centralized government in the development of civilizations in this textbook. Naturally, it makes sense, but the language, it's a repetitive phrase in order to instruct the reader. Strong centralized government is a repetitive phrase in this textbook. Under the Tang dynasty, a system of canals encouraged internal trade and transportation. The Grand Canal, which linked the Huanghe and the Yangtze River, was the longest waterway ever dug by human labor at the time. However, corruption, high taxes, drought, famine, and rebellions contributed to the downswing of Tang dynasty, and it ultimately fell in 907. So from 618 to 907, the Tang dynasty. The Song dynasty, which began in 960, faced constant threats of invaders in the north and had a smaller territory than the Tang. However, the Song dynasty is considered to have marked a golden age due to its improved irrigation methods that allowed for the production of 2 rice crops in a year, which created surpluses, which created the flexibility for the populace to focus on the arts, to pursue commerce, to learn. The government also issued paper money and improved the trade market, leading to the prosperity of Chinese cities. Chinese society during this time was divided into 2 main social classes, the gentry and the peasantry. There's a few more, but gentry and peasantry. The gentry, or wealthy landowning class, provided most of the scholar officials at court. Most Chinese were peasants who worked the land, living on what they produced. Peasants lived in small, largely self-sufficient villages that managed their own affairs, and disputes were resolved within the village, or, if necessary, brought to the emperor county representative. According to Confucian tradition, merchants had an even lower social status than peasants, and women were subordinate. Unable to keep their dowry or remarry after marriage, the Song custom of foot binding reinforced women's subordinate position, limiting their ability to walk and reinforcing the Confucian tradition that women should remain inside the home. They can't walk with bounded feet too well, which reinforces the idea of, well, nowhere for you to go, you can't walk. In the arts and literature, the scholar gentry focused on the balance and harmony through the mastery of simple strokes and lines. Simple strokes and lines definitely make for appealing artwork because it has like a wave to it. It has the wind in it rather than really intentional hard lines. Those are unpleasant because they seem like there's too much of a human touch in it. But when you have a wave, it's the wind. It's water. Taoist tradition influenced painters who sought to capture the spiritual essence of nature in the world. Buddhist themes dominated sculpture and influenced Chinese architecture. The Chinese perfected the skill of making porcelain, a shiny, hard pottery that was prized as the finest in the world, and developing glazes with decorative designs. This turned into Chinaware that we know today. A popular legend says that Tang poet Li Bo, who wrote 2,000 poems celebrating the harmony of nature and lamenting the passage of time, the legend goes that Li Bo, legendary Tang poet, tried to embrace the moon on the lake and subsequently drowned. A little bit of factoids for you there. And that is section 1. The rest of the notes will be shorter. Chapter 13, section 2, the Mongols and Ming China. And thank you for listening. I really do appreciate it. This is section 2 of chapter 13 in a review. Now today I'm doing a review, meaning I'm reading the notes from the chapter. Tomorrow, Friday, I will continue on with chapter 14, section 1, and I'll read the entire thing. This is a review. Chapter 13, section 2, the Mongols and Ming China. Building the Mongol Empire. Mongols were a nomadic people who grazed their horses and sheep on the steppes of Central Asia. River Mongol clans spent much of their time warring with one another. In the early 1200s, however, a brilliant Mongol chieftain united warring tribes. What's his name? You guessed it. Almond butter. Pretty gross. Yeah, I'm not very well put together today. What are you going to do? The chieftain who united those warring river Mongol tribes was Genghis Khan, and Genghis Khan translates to World Emperor. His highly skilled armies conquered the Asian steppe lands with some ease, but as they turned to China, they faced the problem of attacking walled cities. Mongols and Chinese launched missiles against each other from metal tubes filled with gunpowder, cannons. This use of cannons in warfare would soon spread westward to Europe. Genghis Khan did not live to complete the conquest of China. His heirs did. For the next 150 years, the Mongols dominated much of Asia. Their furious assaults toppled empires and spread destruction from southern Russia through Muslim lands and the Middle East to China. The Mongols devastated flourishing provinces of Sichuan and annihilated its great capital of Chengdu. Once conquests were complete, the Mongols were not oppressive rulers. They allowed conquered people to live much as they had before, just paying regular tribute to the Mongol overlords. Although the Mongol warrior had no use for city life, because they were nomadic people, meaning that they live day to day, kind of in a hunter-gatherer style, in the sense of they don't have a homestead. I'm sure that they have store of food and all that rather than hunter-gatherers, but they don't have a steady whatever. You see what I'm saying? They don't live in the city. They don't have use for the city. Where am I? Although Mongol warrior had no use for city life, he respected scholars, artists, and artisans. He listened to the ideas of Confucians, Buddhists, Christians, Muslims, Jews, and Zoroastrians. Zoroastrians, I think that's Persian, ancient Persian religion. The Pax Mongolica, Mongolian peace, lasted from 1200 to 1300, roughly. This is the time of Mongolian peace. According to the contemporaries of the Khans, Mongol rule meant that people enjoyed such peace that a man might have journeyed from the land of sunrise to the land of sunset with a golden platter upon his head, without suffering the least violence from anyone. Meaning that you could just walk around carrying gold on the streets and you would be safe because, I guess, strong central government. Meaning people wouldn't rob you in the streets if you were wearing gold. Kublai Khan and the Yuan dynasty. Wow, I really wrote a lot of notes. Goodness gracious. Genghis Khan's grandson, Kublai Khan, finally toppled the last Song emperor in 1279. From his capital at Kambulak, present-day Beijing, Kublai Khan ruled all of China as well as Korea, Tibet, and Vietnam. Kublai Khan tried to prevent the Mongols from being absorbed into Chinese civilization, as other conquerors of China had been. So he decreed that only Mongolians could serve in the military. He also reserved the highest government jobs for Mongols or non-Chinese officials. Still, because there were too few Mongols to control so vast an empire, Kublai allowed Chinese officials to continue to rule in their provinces. Kublai Khan adopted a Chinese name for his dynasty, the Yuan dynasty, and turned Kambulak into a Chinese walled city. He also welcomed many foreigners into his court, including African Muslims, an African Muslim world traveler, Ibn Battuta. Marco Polo. In 1271, Marco Polo and his father and uncle left Venice and crossed Persia and Central Asia into China, where he spent 17 years in Kublai Khan's service. That's right, Marco Polo in the Mongols' service. In 1271, Polo and his father, he described the royal palace of Kublai Khan as being covered with gold and silver and decorated with pictures of dragons and birds and horsemen and various breeds of beasts and scenes of battle. Furthermore, he reported that the city of Hangzhou was 10 or 12 times the size of Venice, one of Italy's richest cities. The Ming dynasty restores Chinese rule. Remember, the Yuan dynasty is the Mongol dynasty in China. Chinese not big fans of that. The Yuan dynasty declined after the death of Kublai Khan. Most Chinese despised the foreign Mongol rulers. Heavy taxes, corruption, and natural disasters led to frequent uprisings. Finally, Zhu Yanzhang, a peasant leader, forged a rebel army that toppled the Mongols and pushed them back beyond the Great Wall. In 1368, he founded a new Chinese dynasty, Zhu Yanzhang, that is, which he called the Ming, meaning brilliant. Ming means brilliant. The Ming restored the civil service system, and Confucian learning again became the road to success. The civil service exams became more rigorous than ever. A board of censors watched over the bureaucracy, rooting out corruption and disloyalty. The fertile, well-irrigated plains of eastern China supported a population of more than 100 million. The Yang Valley peasants produced a huge rice crop. In the 1500s, a new crop reached China from America. Two crops actually, corn and sweet potatoes. New technologies increased output in manufacturing, and better methods of printing produced a flood of books. Ming artists developed their own styles of landscape painting and created brilliant blue and white porcelain vases and plates, which are now quintessential forms of Chinaware to this day. That's Ming style. Remember that. The blue on the white. China. Between 1405 and 1433, Zhang He, the most famous Ming Chinese explorer, led a fleet of 62 boats with 25,000 sailors to show local rulers the power and strength of the Middle Kingdom and collect tribute and expand trade. In 1433, when Zhang died, the Ming Emperor banned the building of seagoing ships for mysterious reasons. And that's the end of that section. Now, on to Chapter 13, Section 3. There's 5 sections, and now it's going to get much quicker because I'll let ChatGPT write the notes. Korea and its traditions. Chapter 13.3. Korea is a peninsula located in East Asia, bordered by China and to the north, and separated from Japan by the sea. The majority of the peninsula is covered by mountains. The Tibak mountain range running along the eastern coast, and the western coastal plains being the major farming region. The country has a long coastline with many harbors and thousands of offshore islands. The seafood has traditionally been an important part of the Korean diet. Throughout history, Korea has been heavily influenced by China, both culturally and technologically, but Korean language is not related to Chinese. In early times, Koreans adapted transformed the Chinese traditions before passing them on to Japan. 3 separate kingdoms, Koguryo, Paecheki, and Shilla, existed between 300 and 600 AD. And after centuries of conflict, the Shilla kingdom united Korea peninsula in 668 with the support of Tang Emperor Wu Zhao. The Shilla ruled from 668 to 918, followed by the Koryo dynasty in 918 to 1392, and then the Choson or Yi dynasty from 1392 to 1910. What a run. During the Shilla dynasty, Korea became tributary state of China, adopting Confucian ideas such as the emphasis on family as the foundation of the state. Women's rights became restricted under the influence of Confucian views, and Koreans adapted and modified Chinese ideas to reflect their own system of inherited ranks. Buddhism reached its greatest influence in Korea during the Koryo age, and Korean scholars writing histories and poems based on Chinese models, and artists creating landscapes painting followed Chinese principles. Korean inventors made movable type and improved on Chinese innovation, movable metal type. The Choson dynasty was the longest Korean in history from 1392 to 1910 and produced some of Korea's leading poets and scholars. That was Chapter 13, Section 3. This is Chapter 13, Section 4. The emergence of Japan. Chapter 13, Section 4. The emergence of Japanese culture can be traced back to the rule of Prince Shotoku of Japan's ruling Yamato clan in 604 AD. He outlined ideals of behavior for both royal court and ordinary people, reflecting a strong Confucian influence on social order. Japan was located in an archipelago, still is located in an archipelago, but 100 miles off the Asian mainland, with its 4 main islands being Hokkaido, Honshu, Kyushu, and Shikoku. Most of Japan's land was too mountainous to farm, but mild climate and sufficient rainfall helped Japanese farmers make the most of limited arable land. Farmable land? Japan was close enough to learn from Korea and China, but too far away for the Chinese to conquer, giving Japan greater freedom to accept or reject Chinese influence than other Asian lands. Japanese society was divided into clans, and each clan had its own chief and a special god or goddess, seen as the clan's original ancestor. By about 500 AD, the Yamato clan dominated a corner of Honshu, set up Japan's first and only dynasty, and claimed a direct descendant from the sun goddess Amaterisa, choosing the rising sun as its symbol. Early Japanese clans honored kami, or nature spirits, in what became known as Shinto. Hundreds of Shinto shrines dot Japanese countryside, and though simple in design, they are generally located in beautiful, natural surroundings. I think that they're dedicated to natural abnormalities, which are manifestations of the divine, like a strange-looking rock or an ancient knotted tree. The Japanese language is distantly related to Korean, but completely different from Chinese. The Japanese and Korea were in continuous contact with each other. Missionaries from Korea had introduced Buddhism to Japan in about 500 AD, bringing knowledge of Chinese writing and culture, which sparked a sudden surge of Japanese interest in Chinese civilization. In the early 600s, Prince Shotoku decided to reach out to China directly and sent young nobles to study in China. Over the next 200 years, Japan adopted many Chinese customs and ideas while still maintaining its own distinct culture. That's section 4. And finally, and thank you for listening. I really appreciate your time and your attention, even if this is in the background. As a matter of fact, that's the point, hence the name. Ambient classroom. The point is that it's in the background. Chapter 13, Section 5, Japan's Feudal Age. Chapter 13, Section 5, Japan's Feudal Age. Japanese feudalism emerged as rival clans battled for control of the countryside, resulting in a warrior aristocracy dominating Japan's society. The shogun, or supreme military commander, controlled only a small part of Japan and distributed lands to vassal lords, who agreed to support him with their armies in times of need. These vassal lords were called daimyo. Samurai were the fighting aristocracy of a war-torn land and developed their own code of values known as bushido, emphasizing honor, bravery, and absolute loyalty to one's lord. The position of women declined steadily as the age of the samurai progressed. The social hierarchy consisted of peasants, artisans, and merchants. During the feudal age, most fighting took place between rival warlords, but the Mongol conquest of China and Korea also threatened Japan. The Kamakura shogunate crumbled in the aftermath of Mongol invasions, leading to a new dynasty that saw increased in warfare until several powerful warriors united large parts of Japan. The Tokugawa shogunate then created a unified, orderly society by imposing central government control on all Japan, leading to the establishment of centralized feudalism. government decree sent out to all villages stated, "However good-looking a wife may be, if she neglects her household duties by drinking tea or sightseeing or rambling on the hillsides, she must be divorced." Women's freedom to move about or even travel with their husbands was strictly prohibited. Shogun means supreme military commander. Daimyo means vassal lord in feudal Japan. Samurai, those who serve. Bushido, the way of the warrior. Mongol attempts thwarted by the winds. This is crazy. Listen to this. And this is the last thing. And then I hope you have a wonderful day and enjoy the weather. When the Japanese refused to accept Mongol rule, Kublai Khan launched an invasion from Korea in 1274. After carrying 30,000 troops, a typhoon wrecked many Mongol ships. In 1281, the Mongols then tried again. So, what's that? 7 years later, the Mongols landed again with an even larger invasion force. But again, a typhoon destroyed much of the Mongol fleet. The Japanese accredited this miraculous delivery to the kamikaze. Kamikaze definition, this just in, divine winds. How beautiful language is that for something that we know as so grisly and horrendous? Kamikaze, divine winds. How bizarre. Context is everything. John Michael. Have a good day. Thank you. Thank you.